Independence Day, 1992. The sky above the Grand Canyon fills with the sound of helicopter blades. Roads that normally welcome tourists are sealed off, one by one. Dogs strain against their leashes, sniffing the dirt for a scent that keeps disappearing. Over 500 armed officers stand ready, waiting for a single man to make one wrong move. They are not hunting a gang. They are not hunting an army. They are hunting one person, and that person has already survived weeks of being surrounded by some of the best trackers in the country. His name was Danny Horning, and by the time this manhunt began, he had already been called something else entirely. They called him the Nightmare. To understand how one man could bring this much firepower to a standstill, you have to go back to who Danny actually was. He wasn't just a criminal. He was, in the words of those who studied his case, the complete criminal. A man capable of robbery, assault, murder, and worse. All wrapped inside a personality that could switch from ice-cold calm to explosive rage in seconds. There's one story that captures this perfectly. Danny walked into a grocery store, gun in hand, and simply asked the owner for money, cigarettes, and some alcohol. Almost politely, like any customer. The owner made the mistake of mocking him for it. That single comment was enough. Danny beat him to death, tore the store apart, and set it on fire before walking out. But what made Danny different from other violent criminals wasn't just his temper. It was his training. Before any of this, he had served in the U.S. Special Forces, where he mastered survival, tracking, and hand-to-hand combat. Skills meant to protect lives, he turned into tools for destruction. Throughout the 1980s, Danny terrorized Arizona with a string of armed bank robberies, each one more violent than the last. Police warned citizens never to resist him, and then, in 1990, his crimes caught up with him. A dismembered body, a burned car, and a signature style investigators instantly recognized as his. After a brutal 7-hour standoff in the mountains, Danny was finally captured and sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms. Everyone assumed that was the end of the story. It wasn't even close. Inside prison, Danny's violence didn't stop. He was linked to the deaths of 4 inmates. But in solitary confinement, he did something far more dangerous than fighting. He watched. He studied guard rotations, camera blind spots, every detail of the building around him. And when he was finally moved back into the general population, he was ready. On May 12, 1992, Danny walked out of one of the most secure prisons in Arizona, not with violence, but with a stolen nurse's uniform and pure patience. Lost inside the maze of hallways, he simply asked janitors for directions, knowing they'd know the exits best. Guard after guard opened doors for him. No alarms, no struggle. He simply walked away. What followed was chaos. Instead of fleeing the state like police expected, Danny disappeared straight into the wilderness of the Grand Canyon, terrain he knew better than anyone chasing him. He survived off stolen supplies, evaded dogs by walking in circles and doubling back over his own tracks, and even taunted police with notes and recorded messages demanding $1 million and his brother's release. The government eventually brought in military special forces, but Danny always seemed to slip through their net. Even hijacking 2 British tourists to drive him straight out of the blockade, right past checkpoints that assumed he was still trapped inside. But after 53 days on the run, exhaustion finally caught up with him. His mistakes multiplied, his tracks grew careless, and on July 4th, near a highway outside Phoenix, his stolen car slammed into a tree. He ran for the trees one last time. But this time, the dogs found him. Surrounded with nowhere left to hide, Danny surrendered with a simple, exhausted plea. Take me and give me some peace. He was returned to the very prison he'd escaped, this time locked away in solitary confinement for the rest of his life. More than 3 decades later, people still argue about who Danny Horning really was. Some see a monster. Others, strangely, see a symbol of defiance. His face even printed on t-shirts sold as merchandise.
But behind the myth was a man who left a trail of real victims, real families, and real fear. Proof that legends aren't always heroes. Sometimes, they're simply nightmares that refuse to be forgotten.